this is Ryan over with Turbo 360. Today we're going to be doing a React Native series, and it's going to be Instagram type clone, or like a basic photo sharing app. And we're going to be doing a lot more React Native stuff going forward. So for this one, I'm going to keep it it's going to be a pretty full-featured app, but more basic in terms of speed. Like we'll go over a lot of different basic components. What is a FlatList, touchable opacity, view, layout with React Native and Flexbox, that kind of stuff. Which maybe in later series we won't focus on because you'll know at that point. So the speed is going to be more to the beginner track, and not beginner in the sense that you're new to programming, that you haven't done too much React Native development. A lot of the concepts are pretty simple, but if you just haven't used it yet, you won't know. For example, there's no idea of a button in React Native. So if you're coming from web, you're going to think that, a button is how you handle user click and touch inputs, but there's no such thing. So like stuff like that, and it should be a pretty good series, and I'm pretty excited. And sorry, just looking in the corner, they actually just created in probably the last few releases of React Native a button component, but for the most part we use something else anyway. So yeah, and that's the other thing, it's constantly changing, and it's really interesting. I think it's a pretty good time to get involved with React Native development, especially if you're newer to mobile development and maybe you don't have 2-3 years of Swift or Java experience. I would personally start with React Native development if I were starting today. I think the market is pretty good right now, and there's a lower barrier to entry just in terms of it being a newer technology. I don't know, it's been around maybe 3 years if I had to guess, so no one has 5 years experience. That being said, is still difficult, and you definitely have to put in some work to get good at it, but it's not impossible. So we're gonna work on that through the series and get everyone kind of up to speed, and hopefully if you stick through it, you'll be able to build some apps, submit to the App Store, and yeah, whether maybe you just want to do it for fun, that's an option too. It's a good series, and I think a good skill to have. So alright, let's get started. So we're going to be doing kind of like an Instagram clone, and I'm kind of a crazy person, so I don't even have Instagram or Facebook or anything on my phone. So I just want to grab like a screen grab or two off here so we kind of have something to work with. And for today's video, we're going to be doing a lot of like layout type stuff, so this should get us through. But hold on, I'm going to get a picture of that main page for us to work with. So that's a profile page we're probably going to need, and then this is what I wanted. Okay, so let me pull up that screenshot real quick. Okay, so if you look here, just to give us kind of a good idea of what we're going to be working with, we're going to need some sort of header type component. That's actually a little more complicated, so that will probably be in the second video. But we have a pretty large image here. Like Instagram is very visual, that's most of the screen. A like button or a message button, and then we have some content here. I think they show some comments there, and then we have this tab bar here. So the tab bar and the header we're not going to get to in this first video. That's probably going to be the second one, but that's going to be covered in the navigation library. So React has a navigation library that React Native has a navigation library they recommend called React Navigation, and that by default provides some headers and tab navigators. We're going to work with those. But for today, I just want to work on kind of the whole layout idea. Because if you're coming from web, it's a little different. They actually use Flexbox, so maybe if you've used that in web. I mean, I know it's a little newer and less common and not completely supported, but I've seen it on some projects. But basically, this is all Flexbox, which helps because every time you do a React Native project, right? Let's say you make, like here I have the iPhone X here. Every project is going to be used on iPhone X, iPhone 6, iPhone 6 Plus, Android, and the Android aspect ratios are not even close to being uniform. They're all over the place. So Flexbox kind of helps because the idea of Flexbox is each screen is, each screen is 100% of like a Flexbox, and then everything's kind of divided up accordingly. So that's what we're going to work with today and kind of get better at that. And it's a pretty nice layout feature. I've talked to some native developers, as in like, coming from like a Swift Objective-C background. And a lot of them are like, oh, I wish we had the Flexbox layout in regular. It's pretty nice. So that's kind of one of like the big advantages actually of React Native. So to get started, like obviously this image is the biggest piece. So let's just let's upload an image, and you don't really want to use any like local, like you don't want to be storing these images locally, right? Like the images we want to store locally are like icons, small stuff. Like the majority of your images are going to be coming from a remote URL, and you can read about it on the React Native docs. Oh, let me just pull, I have them up here just to see. The React Native docs, I said before, they're very good. When people complain that they're not complete and stuff, I think they're pretty good. So if you just wanted to read more about React Native, I would say go to the docs and just read through the basics and just the guides. They're very good. Not to repeat myself, but there's not much else to say about them. So the image component, you can have remote images or local images. Typically, your app is going to be distributed via the App Store. So you don't want to be adding extra images that aren't like required for immediate use. Like things like icons, you don't want to be fetching your icons remotely because you don't want to keep reloading those. They're going to be there, but everything else should be coming from, most of your content should be coming from a remote resource. And I mean, that's just the way the app is going to work anyway. But for some reason, if you were, I don't know, storing 100 images or something, I would recommend fetching them remotely because you really want to keep your bundle size down when you distribute the app. No one wants to download a 100 megabyte app. You want to keep your bundle size below, I think they say like 15 to 20 megs. So definitely store your images remotely. And for that, we're obviously using Turbo. So if you're not familiar with Turbo, Turbo is like a full featured kind of like development platform. And if you're doing web stuff, it's kind of like similar to Node Express, but being we're using React Native, we're kind of using it to build an API and some sort of backend, and it's pretty fast and easy to just kind of build a quick backend with it, and it's free, so that's why we are using Turbo for our native project. Otherwise, you got to find I don't know, a Ruby on Rails or Django or I don't know, Node Express developer. So this should, even if you're focusing on mobile, everyone should be able to build their own APIs with this is my point. So let's get started. Oh, sorry. If you don't have an account, just sign up quick. It's free. It takes 2 seconds. I'll just show you real quick. All right, and when you join, you need to make an app. Let's see, apps. Oh, here. So go to Create App, and if your screen's wide, it'll pop up in this sidebar here. And let's just call it Instagram clone React Native project. And the reason we're doing this right now is because we need to get these images to work with, and I don't want to get in the habit of doing I've done this before in tutorial and realized I shouldn't, like doing things the wrong way for like learning purposes. Like, oh, let's just upload them locally, and it's just for learning purposes to work on the layout, and then someone drops off after the first video, and then that's how they do it. So I want to just do everything the right way from now on. So let's go to our data store here, and our storage, and we need to upload a file. So what this does is uploads to a CDN. So let's Google cute puppy. Let's download this image. All right. And now, so this has its own URL. We don't want to use that because one, it's not on a CDN. So a CDN is basically a way to a content delivery network, and what it is it basically delivers like your static assets faster. So it'll be a noticeable difference if you're just pulling these images off the web. So it's important to use a CDN for your images, and again, that's any like standard project you do. So we download that. Let's upload the file here, and we're gonna upload this here. And now this puppy is on the CDN in your account. So we're going to need this URL is my point. So let's get back to the project, and I have another series I did called setting up your development environment for React Native. It's about a 20-minute video. If you haven't done that already, I would say pause right here and go do that and come back. We can't do that in every video because it's going to take like 20 to 30 minutes. So we just made kind of one video that we're going to keep referring to. So go set up your environment, and when you're done, come back. And again, there's two kinds of users out there. There is users who can, I think on the docs they call it build from source. So you have Xcode, Android Studio, all that set up. So there's those users, and there's users using Xcode. I'm going to cover both approaches when necessary, so you should be able to follow along with either. And again, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, go back to that intro video, and then just come right back here. But just so if you're building from source, you want to do React Native init. I'm going to call this insta clone, and this is going to take a minute or two. And then again, just for you guys who are on Expo, create React Native app, and I'm just going to change the name so it doesn't interfere with my other one, but you guys want to call it insta clone. I'll call it insta clone 2 so we don't crash. And so always forget. The part that takes a while is once we actually go to run the app, then it goes to build in Xcode and whatever. Just a reminder, if you're working on iOS, you have your simulator open. But if you're on Android Studio, at least last time I was working on there, you have to manually open Android Studio and then run your simulator. Otherwise, the next command is going to crash. Okay, so again, we have two projects. This one is for if you built from source. This one is if you built with Expo. And again, all that is in the intro video. And I'm going to actually end this one, and I'm going to I prefer to do the first method. I just want to illustrate the commands. So I use Visual Studio Code as code editor. It's got some good features, but that doesn't matter. You can use whatever. So I'm going to open my folder on my desktop. Where did I make this? Sorry, I put it in the wrong folder, so give me a second. Okay, so if you guys don't know, this is a MV command. It's move, so I want to put this on my desktop, and I guess sometimes if I'm talking, it's hard to pay attention and do both. I'm still getting used to that aspect of the recording. So anyway, if you just do MV the target or the source, and then you type in the destination, it'll move it for you. So that appeared right here, and we can open that. So again, just because this is a little more kind of introductory type series, we're going to take time explaining more things that we might not do later on. So this is kind of your project structure for, let me zoom in a little, help you guys out. This is kind of the project structure for a React Native app. So you have this Android folder and the iOS folder, and again, if you're on the Expo project, it might be different. But these folders here deal with a lot of like native specific stuff. So for today's series, I don't think we're going to need to touch it. Later on when we link some of the camera stuff, we might. I'm trying to see if we can get away without touching it, but that's what these are. So 99% of your work is going to take place outside of these folders. No modules. That's the for the npm packages. Most of you are probably familiar. What else do we have? Okay, then we have our app.js, which gave some sample whatever, and our index.js. So if you see here, the index.js says app registry dot register component instaclone, and then it points to this app. So this index is basically what registers our JavaScript bundle with the to the native side. That's what this register component is, and they're using this app component. So we want to do all our work in this app folder, and obviously we don't want to have an entire app in this one project. So on almost every project you guys work on, you're going to see there's some sort of either a JS folder or a source folder, and that's where we're going to do most of our work. So I'm going to open up the terminal here, and right in the root, call it JS or source. I'm going to call my source, and then this folder is going to be where all our work takes place. So okay, so I just want to first make sure that everything's set up and running properly. So they do have some default styling here in app.js. So let's just make sure that the app runs. So if we open up our, I'm going to leave the terminals in the bottom here. But so typically, I always have like 3 or 4 terminal tabs open. So again, this applies to the building from source users. The Expo users, I believe you just run npm start. That's very simple. But for everyone else, you have to do React Native start in one window, and this starts the the JavaScript bundler. And then in another window, React Native run iOS, or if you're on Android, run Android. Now the first time I run this, it's going to take a little while, so because now it's going to go build the whole Xcode project. You might see it start up here, but this will take a few minutes. So basically, I typically will leave. Well, this you have to leave running, the bundler. You'll see later, every time we save it, it'll be like a green progress bar, and it'll be rebundling the changes for use in the app. So this always is running. This, once you run and it builds, you don't have to leave running, but I find a lot that I need to restart, or if I run into like issues and I need to restart a lot. So what I'll do is leave that running, and then I'll basically just I'll just press up to to like do my last command, and it's just easier to have those tabs always there. And then I'll usually have another tab open, like my main one that I'm working in, that'll do create files and anything with Git, that type of thing. So typically I have 3 tabs open. And again, I apologize, this is taking so long. And it looks like as of the last few versions, like this here and this type here is part of Facebook's Flow, which is like a type checking library. So I haven't played around too much with that. I'm thinking I might do a video series on that later on, but I would say that's more like intermediate to advanced. But it's interesting that they're kind of, it looks like they're sort of recommending it now. So that's something I'm gonna look into. And again, everything's new and kind of changing a lot. So, and I kind of messed up the order. I forgot that this takes like 5 minutes. I should have done this, then we could have went and uploaded our picture. But it's almost done. So basically, this is creating an entire Xcode project and linking everything. And so the first time it takes a while, but after that, it's pretty straightforward. And I'm going to open up our image again while this is going. So basically, the way Flexbox works, it helps in anything that you need like percentage widths for. And the biggest thing is, if you guys are coming from web, you'll know before Bootstrap came along, like the whole idea of centering things was extremely difficult. And I mean, I know now there's a million different CSS Grid, Flexbox, different frameworks and stuff, but I know at one point it was very difficult. So that's really where this kind of shines. Like, for example, this centering this is, one attribute, and it'll always be centered across all screen sizes, and then this will always be aligned right across all screen sizes. Stuff like that is really nice. So now my thing finished, but I don't see. Forgot to run npm install. Okay, just run npm install quick. So you're going to see there's a lot more like overhead in the startup of these native projects versus like a web project. But once you're up and running, it's pretty straightforward, so don't fear. Yeah, so just run npm install your dependencies. There's not that many, so it was not bad. I believe that's what the Expo one was doing before when I exited it. So I think they do it by default. And again, I apologize it's taking so long to kind of get moving, but I'm trying to, maybe in the future videos, depending on the level, we can just start with the project already scaffolded. That I have not decided, but all right. Once it's installed, rerun your command, and this won't take a million. I don't think it should take a million minutes because the project should already be built. Probably only like 30 seconds. While this is going on, open up the other screenshot. So here, this is where the Flexbox is really going to come into good use, because with this grid here, it's very easy to make perfectly sized like grids like this, because again, everything is percentage based. So you can basically say be 1/3 the width, 1/3 the width, and like 1/3 the height here, and it's if you've come from like web, and even if you've and not done Flexbox, and you use it, you're going to be like, oh, this is great. I should use it for the web. But like in this scenario, I mean, it kind of makes sense. But then when you think about it, you have to support 500 different image sizes and 500 different screen sizes and aspect ratios. Thanks to Android, it really like makes a huge difference. So you'll see whenever my project finishes. Um, Gonna pause this for a second till I get this running in case there's some issue. Hold on. Don't want to make you sit through it again. All right, that was quick. So for some reason, my I have all like the QuickTime stuff set up, so I can't really see all my screen. My default device is an iPhone 6, so it launched it in the background while we were running that. So again, npm install, rerun, run iOS. You should be good to go, and just it might pop up in a different simulator. I'm pretty sure if I wanted to do, I think I can do something like this. I have to check the docs, but no iOS devices connected. All right, I'm just going to use this guy for now to keep this moving along. So here's our directory right here, our app.js, right? We don't want any of this stuff. We basically only want to keep the scaffold. We basically want to render here like the rest of our app, which is going to be coming from another package. So get rid of all this. Use StyleSheet platform. Not sure why they even have this platform library. Get rid of this. Text. Get rid of text. And this is flow stuff here you can get rid of. Get rid of all this. So we just want to be left with this empty container here. So we want as much as possible out of this root part of the project. And we're going to just render kind of like our app here. That's basically our goal. Now, just to give you guys, I said we're going to go over some basic components. So view is basically like the equivalent of like a div in HTML. It's kind of like the most basic layout component, and it's probably one of the most commonly used components. And then style sheet is the same as the HTML style sheet. So that's kind of how we apply our styles. And again, right now I'm just kind of cutting these out to kind of get something to work with. So we'll go over them more in depth. But basically, this here is a React component. It's just a standard React component. We just want to get rid of all the extra stuff they have. And what we're going to do is say import insta clone from okay. So this obviously there is no insta clone, so that's what we need to now create. Sorry, I have a prettier like type formatting on, so if it's an empty tag, it removes it. So I'm just going to do this for now. So this is going to crash. So /source/ let's say instaclone.js. Okay, so let's go to that directory and create this project now. So we're going to go to our source directory, and I'm just from the bat going to create these folders. We're not going to get to them today, but it's basically the, like if you're working on a big project and all of a sudden you have 100 components, you want some kind of like structure so they're not just all sitting in the same folder. So that's what we're going to set up now. So in your source directory, you're going to make a components directory, and in that directory, cd into it, you want to make a, I'm going to call it screens directory, and I'll call this presentation and container. So just to give you like a very high level overview, everyone does it like all different ways, but we're kind of just trying to come up with some base logic to kind of separate our components. So a screen is going to be kind of like a layout type, a screen. Presentation components are typically components that they're not very smart, or they're called dumb components. They basically are just given some kind of data and all they know how to do is rendering. So they deal with literally only view logic. And then container components are usually like our smarter components that do more. So that's kind of the structure here. But let's just go into our source directory. And for now, we're just going to make that one file, instaclone.js. Right here. And we go here. So this is going to be our first component we create. So you always import React, and then the component. Let me get rid of this so you can see. From React class. So this is the same as if you were coming from web. So class instaclone extends component export default. And then you always have to render and return something in your components. And okay, so if you came from web, this is a standard component, looks familiar. Now this is where it differs. We need to import, because we're not just using HTML, these are all specific libraries, any React Native libraries we want to use. And again, if you go to your docs, you can go to the left side here, and there's probably 50 to 100 components. Nah, probably 50. But you can get by with using about like less than 10. We'll get you like 90% of the way there. So don't be like overwhelmed. And we're going to get through all those 10 in this series. So like the traditional view, text, style sheet, touchable opacity, which I was talking at the beginning. We have to go over image, FlatList. That like those will get you most of the way there. So don't like get overwhelmed when you see that there's 50 components. That's more if you're going for like a professional level app and trying to take it those next that from like 90 to 100%, and you're like, oh, why is my I need to set up the notification. I need to make sure in my app that I can see if the notifications are on or not. Like I need to check permissions, like those kind of things that come up. And when they come up, you'll know about them. So you can just, you'll kind of like Google and find your way, or look and say, oh, I wonder if there's a component for that. So like to get the hang of it, I would say you need like about 10 components. So by the end of the series, it'll feel like second nature. All right, so for today, or for this, we just need view, text, style sheet, and let's say image from React Native. And again, everything you use you have to import. Unlike in web, you can just throw in all your HTML elements. We're not rendering HTML, and each one of these maps to different native components, so that's why you have to do this. And if you just remember what I said, a view is like the most basic form of a view is like the most basic just kind of like placeholder layout component. So I usually start all of my components with a view just to start. Maybe later you have to change it, but for now that should work fine. And let's just throw in some text to just see if our app is working. That's that. And if you click your screen, and if you're on Mac, it's Command R. From source instaclone.js. Oh. Yeah. Okay, you got to export the name of it. I think I was talking and just said export default component. So that's just fix that real quick. Okay, I'm still getting used to the talking and typing. I don't know if I ever will, but check the render method. Class instaclone. Export defaults. All right, sorry guys. So I accidentally imported this as like a sub module, but it's its own module. And later on, all of our other components are going to be like, see how we do this here. That's how we're going to set it up later on, but we're not set up for that yet. So just bear with me. So as I was saying, I don't know if I'll ever get used to talking and typing, but hopefully for your sake soon. Okay, so over here we have our everything working, showing up. That's a good sign. Let's pull open those image files again. Just screenshot. All right, so let's just kind of to start, let's just render this image in the center, or our puppy in the center of the screen, just to kind of see what we're working with. So I'm going to go back here to our instaclone, and also you notice how this is centered here? That's all because of Flexbox. So we haven't provided any kind of styling, but in app.js here we have this default styling that's purposely centering everything for us, which is nice. So let's use the image component, and we're going to say src equals, and this is a little weird, you have to say URI, I believe. So if it's from a remote resource, you need to pass in this URI and basically tell React Native that you're using a remote image. So I gotta find our puppy guy. Did I lose him? Oh, here we go. And that's obviously going to be a string. So let's save that, see if this works. There we go. Not off to a good start today. Okay, we might need to pass a default height and width to the image. So let's just try that to start. If not, I think the URL might not end in PNG, might be giving us issues. All right, there we go. We just need to give a default some sort of style to start. So there's our little guy. And like I was saying, we wanted to kind of fill the width. So I'm going to change this width here to 100%. And notice here how this weird syntax, this is just a JSX thing. So you have to have the integer plus the percent sign in a string. That's a little weird. Let's try that. And it does not like that with 100%. Okay, let's give this outer container here a flex of 1. So that's making this a flex box. I think that might be part of our issue. And then I'll explain this in a second. I don't know why it doesn't like our 100% width. Okay, there we go. So we need to give the because out here this has a flex of 1, and basically flex of 1 basically says I am a flex box. All my children can be styled with flex box. So this here has a flex of 1. However, this because this is wrapping our component here, this it's basically this is a child of that, and it's not letting us escape outside of our maximum required size. So if you explicitly, like here when I explicitly gave a width of 50 like pixels, then it has to be 50. But when you're using the percentages, it's like saying, oh, width of 100, but I don't, 100% is nothing. So that's what was kind of going on there. So I think I'm gonna get rid of, and just get rid of all of this. And just render, like let's just let our app be the root here. And you're gonna say, what, this here, like we're just rendering just this, why can't we just do this in here? Because later there might be more stuff and more like a lot of event listener type stuff might end up coming out here, but for now let's just render just this piece here. And okay, there we go. So now we don't have to worry about like the parent styling. So we're doing all our styling in here. So the first thing we want to do is let's give his height 100% and just see if we're filling the screen or not now. Okay, so that's what we want. So we're outside the control of our parent container now, which is good. Now let's just pull up that screenshot again and see what we want to do. So we have this, like I said, we're going to get to this header part later. We can do that in the next series actually, but I mean the next video, but that's an extra navigation library. So we're going to skip that. But we need this kind of bar here, which is going to have the username, and I'm assuming this is some kind of menu. I'll have to take a look later, maybe download it, give in. But so let's make a little kind of bar here. So and let's get rid of his 100% height. That's going to cause issues. Just give him 100 fixed height for now while we figure that out. Okay, so here we just want like a little bar. So what we're going to do is view and view. And let's say style equals width 100%. And let's give this a height of 50 for now. So that's this bar here. Oh, I should have mentioned you're going to see a lot of times this status bar in it has a height of 20, and then now with the iPhone X has a height of 44 or something. That's something you're going to have to deal with, and navigation library will deal with most of that for us. So we're going to leave this for now, but just be aware like our height of 50 is counting under here, so it's 20 and then 30. So there should be some common layout components to take care of that, and our navigation library is going to do that for us. So I'm just going to leave it for now. Maybe I'll put a default, like a placeholder up here while we wait for our nav bar, so we can kind of copy the screen. So why don't I just make this one here a height of 100. That's too big. 75. That looks decent. And what we're going to do is give it a background color of if you have a Mac, there's this digital color meter. We'll just tell you all the I can't even really see it. Seems pretty light. Hold on. I mean, I guess that's the color. Okay. Well, when we make this underpiece white, you'll be able to see it. And you can see this tiny border. That's actually something interesting. We'll get to that in a second. And so you see here how we have all these styles kind of like, it's getting kind of crowded. So that's what this style sheet component does. So we're going to come down here and say const styles equals style sheet dot create, and then this is all just regular JavaScript. So if I take all this style here and I remove it, we can just say styles dot whatever we want to call this, temp nav, and if I come down here I could say temp nav, and I'm going to paste all that, and that is just regular JavaScript. So all this gets inserted into here and it should still work. Oh, what I was saying with that thin border, this is a special property of the style sheets where we can say border bottom. I have to remember how to do this. Style sheet dot hairline width Oh yeah, here you go. So it's not like usually your border might be 1 or 2 pixels. This is even less, but it's a special property you have to call. So say border bottom width StyleSheet dot hairline width, and we got to give it a color. Could jump back to our image here just to kind of see. I assume it's some sort of dark gray, or I'll get something close enough. 234 233. Yeah, it looks good. Now you actually probably are not going to even be able to see it. You have to zoom in because it's like too small for the monitors to render sometimes. So that's kind of something I've run into before, where I'll render something and then like you won't see it and you're troubleshooting. What does it say? All right, so maybe that's just a property. Okay, so this is just a property, StyleSheet dot hairline width. But anyway, I don't know why it's showing up like kind of pinkish. I'm assuming I mistyped. Oh, yeah. Well, it's good because we can actually see it for now. But you can't even really see it. When we get the white, you'll be able to see, but that's, I want to show that because that's what they're doing there. And if you use like a margin of 1, sometimes it'll just look a little off. So you want to use this hairline width property. Okay, so we have this nav bar, and let me see. Just to start, I'm not gonna go crazy, but I'm just gonna write Instagram in the center because we're gonna come back in a later video. So you just put your text in there, and I'm just gonna say Instagram, and see how it's right up there now, like it's covering our item. So what we want to do is go to our temp nav, and we want to use some flex properties. So the first one we want to do is, let's do, okay, so by default, Flexbox, it aligns everything in a column. So everything is going to be like column based. So that's called flex direction column. If we have a lot of stuff to render here, which we will later, you want to do flex direction row, just to help us line it up. But for our purposes, if we're just trying to center this title, we'll be able to get away with just using the column layout. So I believe we can do justify content center align items center. Okay, so you see how it's not really centered because this, well, it's centered, but the bar here is throwing us off. So usually what I would do, maybe we could do this. Height of 50 and a padding top of 20. Let's try that real quick. No, I think we want a margin. Okay, so that looks better. So it's kind of centered from here to here. So that the 20 is kind of offsetting this status bar. And if you ever want to inspect your screen, you could do Command D, go to Toggle Inspector, and it's the same as like a Chrome debugger. So you can see here, it's probably really hard to see on the video, our item height and our margin and whatnot. And that's how you can get the status bar size and stuff. So we have that. Let's get that little bar underneath this guy. And I have to decide if we want to switch to flex-based heights or not, but I think for now I'm just gonna, we're just gonna keep them pixel heights. One thing to note though, so if you look at this here and you kind of measure, I'm assuming this here is so 50 pixels. I'm assuming this down here is going to be the same, or pretty much the same. Like that is something you might want to put in maybe a config file or something, because let's just say later on you change your margin size, I mean your height size for these components, and you have in 100 places that's a height of 50, then you're going to have an issue. So maybe we'll do that in a second. But yeah, let's get that bar. And I don't want to spend any time more on the nav bar, so we're getting rid of that in the next video when we use our navigation library. Okay, so I'm going to call this styles.user bar. And if we come down here, we just got to make a new style. And I'm going to say the same thing with 100%. Height 50. And background color is going to be white. Alright, so and you can kind of actually see that hairline width now. Let me try to blow this up. See that very fine line? Like if you did 1, I mean it's hard to tell on the screen. I don't think it doesn't look the same. See, it's like a little too thick. Okay, so we have this here, and I think we need to align something left and right. So we're going to need to use some flex box here. So we have our circle with our user profile picture, some text, and then this little menu here. So first up, let's just talk about what we want to do. So picture this is like our box that we just defined. We want to basically split it in half, and we're going to give each of our flex boxes, each of our view inside of that, say take up 1/2 the screen space, and basically tell them to align left and align right. Actually, alternatively, there's a flex box command to basically tell them to take up the opposite sides. So that might be our best bet. The key thing there is we need to make sure this is probably going to be 2 separate components here. These 2 need to be in a view that needs to be on the same level as this here, and then we could tell them to align yourselves on the opposite sides. So I think we'll do that. Let's throw up another image, profile image, just to work with. Funny profile pictures. Okay. Okay, I probably should not have Googled that. Yeah, I have a picture of myself on Turbo. I think I do. Oh, okay. Let's just do this. Well, I kind of want a square one just to show. So we can crop it with like border radius and whatnot. Okay, so that's a square, so that'll work. So I'm just going to take that same image, get an image of yourself or just anything really. It's a placeholder until we have profiles. My goal, basically our whole approach is to kind of get the view looking like we want, like pretty good, and then we can start filling it in dynamically. That's kind of the goal here. The wrong Turbo. I gotta make a new profile. Okay, so just upload that file real quick. You can find any image of yourself or whatever you want. Okay, but the key thing here, remember I said we need two pieces to be of equal level in terms of like the parent and children in like the hierarchy. So we're gonna have view and view, and so this is going to take care of this piece. Then we need another view for this piece. And then in here, we're going to have an image. And am I missing a self-closing? Yeah, so the image, make sure you remember your self-closing tag. So you're going to have an image, and then you're going to have a text. And again, I didn't include the default style, so it's not going to show. I'm just going to tell it to take up 90% of my parent. Let's try that. Oh. All right, hold on. Let's go back a second. So we have our styles.userBar. Let's just tell this flex direction row first. Okay, so this is going to have a flex direction of row. Let's just give my picture width of 40 and a height of 40 to start. And see how they're aligned the wrong way up? We need to align them the other way. So view styles.userBar. Okay, so this view here, we need to say also give a flex direction of row. Refresh. Now we're at least going the right way. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. When I saved before, this self-closed. So first, we need to make sure that these are in our user bar. See this this one self-closed too. All right, so now we're in our user bar. Now this we want to be aligned in the middle. Drop down. So right now we have flex direction row. So what we need to do is, I believe it's justify content center. We'll try that. No. Align items. Okay, in here we want to say, like in our child, let's say align items center. See how that dropped it here? So this is a good thing to kind of like read the docs for. So if right now this is flex direction row, so that determines the, I guess, primary axis, right? Everything's going in a row. So align items is kind of like along the other way, how to align them in that row. So if we did justify content, it's going to center our, like you saw before, move it to the middle of the direction we're going. But the same way, align items center. If we were doing a column, because this is our column, align item center would center it this way in that column. So it's a bit confusing, and it's best to, I would say, just go to the React Native page and kind of read about it. Like, see, this tried to center us this way now that we're a column. And honestly, it's one of those things sometimes easy just to kind of like, better just to kind of play around with, change, refresh. Yeah. Okay, so we got to give some border radius here to this picture. So I'm going to make a style down here. And remember, right now we're putting all the styles down here. Later on, let's say we have another page where we have these same avatars. We want to extract these out and keep them common. So I think that's going to kind of help our... We don't want to repeat ourselves. We don't have to use the style again somewhere else. So by moving them to the bottom, we're getting ready to be able to take that next step when needed. Just plop it out. And then, you know, here, styles.tempNav maybe is coming from a file here. So we say import styles up here, styles dot. So that's kind of the thinking here. So I'm just going to give the picture a fixed height and width so that we can use border radius. So I'll give that a try. And then we have to apply this style here. And see, I'm getting rid of these outer parentheses. That's because that's just a JSON object. That's why we put those there. We're getting a whole JSON object return right here. Whoops. Okay, so now we have our thing here. Let's give it a little margin, and we're going to do that in the parent up here, styles.userbar. Let's say margin. This is a good. You can do margin horizontal, which will do the left and right, which is nice. Horizontal, and let's just go to 20 for now, see what that looks like. Too much. Yeah, that looks good. And this is too close here. Same thing. Let's give it another 10. Let's give our text here margin left of 10. We need some padding. Oh, that's the wrong text, sorry. Sorry. Alright, so that looks a little better. This is a little close here. We'll get to that in a second. We still need to align our little ellipses, I guess they're called, to the right here. So what I'm going to do is, we have this view here. Let's just do 3 little dots. Now let's see where by default Flexbox lines them for us. So they're up there, which is not what we want. So by default, it's just because we're not giving any like flex properties. It's just kind of putting them all in a row. So like I was saying before, we want these at the same level. So we have this user bar here, and now these two are at the same level. So if we go to our user bar, we can do align. Again, this is one of those where it's, You know, sometimes, let's just try that. Flex end, no. Width 100%. Flex, stretch. Let's just stretch. Let's try stretch. Space between. Once I get it, I'll explain it. Okay, and now we lost our dot, so that's not what we want. Flex direction row, width 100%. So we need to go along the main axis, which is going to be row center. Should be justified content. Let's just try center for now, just to make sure we're on the right axis. Okay, so that's what we want. But we want to do stretch or space between. I just don't know why we lost our dots. Let's get changed to something longer for a second, just to see. It's hard to see. Okay, so that's there. So why are dots disappearing? Gotta change this margin horizontal to padding horizontal for a second. Okay, that's better. So we don't want margin there, we want padding there. It's throwing off our flex. So there's our little dots. We definitely need to increase the font size on those. So we don't lose them again. That's looking better. A little too big. And we need to also, the same as here, we aligned item center. We got to do the same there so it's centered vertically. Again, perpendicular to the primary axis toward flex direction row. Again, this is one of those things where it's just probably just better just to kind of like play around and yeah. Actually, I think we do have hot reloading. I should have been doing hot reloading. We'll do that in a second. So you can do this enable hot reloading, and now if you watch as we like make changes, by default it'll update. So you'll see that kind of flash. This looks to be centered. I think the font itself might have just helped with that. So we got our bar there. Let's get onto our image. So let's see what this image looks like. Okay, so we have to make sure that the aspect ratio of our image is more vertical than horizontal. And most pictures we find from the web are horizontal. So I think there's a feature with Turbo where you can pass in a param and get back a different size image. But first, I'm trying to think for a second how I want to handle this. I'm just gonna check the docs real quick. Basically, we want to make sure that we're sizing our image. We don't want to ruin our aspect ratio. We don't want to be stretching the image, but we need to make it fill most of the screen vertically instead of horizontally, and that's not really how these images are, and it's going to happen a lot of the times. So we got to think of a good like cropping strategy, and I know that there is a image cropping feature, so just give me a second. Data store, file store. Okay, here we go. So you can pass in a param. Look, yeah, this is kind of like the size we want. S120C, smaller crops. Go. Remove this. Okay. So we want to pass along this parameter, and all we want to do is we want to get our exact screen size and have them crop it for us ahead of time. So instead of doing any like flex resizing this and that, let's just get the exact size we want based on our screen size and have that resized on the server side. So what we're going to have to do is import a package called dimensions, and what we're going to do is use a class method. We're going to say component did mount, and what we want to do now is, with these spaces is driving me crazy. Okay, we're going to say dimensions dot get window dot width, and see if that works. I'm just going to alert this out real quick. It's a quick and dirty way to see if it's working. Okay, this is not a function, it's a property, I think. So okay, so our width is 375. That's the same for, I think, all the iPhones, 6, 7, 8, and I think even the X. So this width is going to be 375. So what do I want to do? I don't think this is a square, but maybe we just want to have a kind of like a square. 420, no. Alright, so first we want to store this somewhere now that we have this. And I'm going to say screen width is going to be all of that. So this is just kind of like this is a standard React lifecycle method. So it is when the component mounts, let's get our window.width, and we're going to save that with set state. And here on our image, first we're going to change our width here to the fixed width, just because it's I just like to use precise measurements when we can, especially for dealing with images. So it's going to be this dot state dot screen width. No, it's not. Yeah, we need to move this to our let's just give a default in our constructor, so that right now it's evaluating to 0 because the state does not exist yet. So in our constructor, let's just set it to 0 until we get it. I gotta fix these tabs in a second. Okay, so we have our width now. I'm tempted, so what I want to do now is here where we have this URI for our main image, I'm going to remove this and I'm going to just say URI is image URI. And we're going to do up here, right before we render, we're going to calculate it. So I'm going to say const image URI equals all of this plus, now if we go back to our docs, it says we could pass these parameters to the end and we'll get a cropped image back. So let's just pass in to see this let's just pass in this S120 or S whatever our screen width is and see what we get back. Plus S plus this dot state dot screen width. Well, let's give that a try. Okay, so it's not like that. Hold on. I'm going to move this right into our constructor, so before we even mount, we get this width. Let me try that. This dot state dot screen width. Oh, you know what? I think it's missing a dash here. Oh, we're missing an equals sign. Sorry, guys. And not a dash. Okay. So now we're getting our image crop. Right now we're restricting the height of it. So I'm going to remove this height and just see what happens. Trying to think how to best handle this. Let's just for fun. Like that looks good, but we need this to be more dynamic, and I'm trying to think of how to handle this. Does that look like about the size that they have? Preview. We got header, this section, image, a little more. I'd say probably a little less. Let's just for now call it 425. Oh, you know what I could do? I'm going to measure their exact aspect ratio. We're going to copy that. I think what we need to do is crop it on the larger size. Okay, so it's going to be 375, we know. And then this is going to be about So it's just a little 405. So it's pretty close to a square. It's just a little off. About 370 on this image. So I'm basically just trying to get what ratio they're using. Just a little extra 10%. So we probably just want to increase our height here by this times 10% on the screen width. So we want to get it on the larger size, and then we're gonna kind of center it ourselves. We don't want to. If we have the ability to not be stretching the image on our client side, we want to do that server side, and then kind of on our end we can just kind of cut off the corners if we need. So this is going to be screen width times 10%. We want that kind of aspect ratio. You're not even going to really notice a difference here. This dot state dot screen width times 1.1. So let's just do this. Const image height equals this dot state dot screen width times 1.1. And then here, let's throw in the image height. $412. Let's do this. Math.floor. It's giving us this long decimal. I wonder if it's throwing off our query string. Okay, yeah. So the calculation was ending in like 100 decimal points. So we did that math.floor, which just basically rounds it. So if I refresh here, you'll see now we have a flat 412. That's what was throwing us off. So this is looking pretty close to the aspect ratio of Instagram. And what I want to do now is I want to see if I can run it on here just to show you that it's kind of scaling nicely. What I want to do is I want to take this URL and I want to go back to our bar up here and equals S. So right now we're passing in like 412 or something. That's the wrong URL, great. This one. Equals S412. So I'm just trying to look in the browser to see like what we're working with here. Okay, so that's that's what we're doing, and our screen is cropping it for us. We want to just add in one more parameter, and I think it's -C. Let me see what this looks like. That is what we want. We want this to be done for us on the server. So let's just pretend we have an Instagram feed of 1,000 dogs. We don't want to keep re-rendering them. So this is kind of what we want. So the missing parameter, and again, this is all in the Turbo documentation, is this -C. So let's just crop that real quick. Image height. And then here we say plus -C. Yeah, so there's our guy. And again, just to see in the server, that's this. So we're getting pretty close. I'm going to take a quick break. Let me see how long we have left on this video. We still have probably like another hour to go to finish this off. So I'm going to take a quick break. If you guys maybe do the same, and we'll reconvene. And when we get back, we're going to finish the bottom here. And then what I want to work on is the touchables and like handling some state stuff. So you can, like or unlike the image, it'll turn red and whatnot, and kind of finish this off. And then the next video, we can kind of move into more dynamic stuff. Again, today's more just about kind of layout and getting used to React Native. And I think another hour or so, you guys will be kind of more used to that. And then again, in the next series, we'll kind of take it to the next level. But you can see we're getting pretty close to our kind of desired thing. Our desired kind of layout. And yeah, I mean, let's take a quick break and we'll circle back. So I'm back. Just to pull up the image the design we're kind of working with here. This is going to be the next part here, this little display bar. And I think for the purposes of our app, we're not going to do messaging, and actually don't know what this icon does. Again, I don't even have Instagram on my phone. So I'm just going to kind of do this bar with the heart, and we'll just have this total number of likes underneath. And then, if you want to build the rest on your own, that's fine. But my understanding of Instagram is if you like double tap or tap the picture, that it's a like, and that this will turn like red. So that's going to allow us to explore the idea of a touchable opacity. And it's kind of what I was talking about in the beginning of when I said there's no idea of a button, which turns out now they did add a button recently. But basically, you can make anything touchable and make anything react to different events. And that's kind of the difference between mobile and a big difference between mobile and web. So we're going to do that. And then we can talk about kind of like state and some local functions. So that'll be good. And then if we can get through that pretty quick, I want to let me pull up the other image. We can start working on this, or maybe just the grid of this, and then that will give us a good leeway into React navigation, because we're going to have to navigate between these screens. All right, so to get started, again, we've been fetching all those icons from a remote URL, but now this like heart icon, this is something you would want to keep locally. You wouldn't want to store remotely. So I'm just gonna, that looks good. Download that. Okay, and just to match the UI, I'll download this chat icon. 50 pics, and what is this, some sort of arrow? That's fine. Okay, so we got those three downloaded, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my folder, and we're going to make a new folder called Assets, and then in there I'm going to paste these, and I'm just going to give them easier names to work with. Arrow. Arrow, heart, and bubble. Okay, now in our source folder here, we want to make a directory called our config and cd into that directory, and let's create an index file. And in this file, I'm going to say export images, and I'm going to say heart icon. What doesn't this like? Okay, there we go. We have to do export default. And that just has to do with the naming conventions and that we're assigning these names right now. So export default, and then we're going to say images, then let's say heart icon, and you want to say require, and we need the address. It's going to be back to directories. Onto assets slash heart.png. I may have the syntax here wrong. Give me a second. I'd like to require the whole thing. No, this looks good. Okay, so basically what this does is we need to require these files here, and what this is going to allow us to do is, one, we can just import config.images.icon when we need to use it, as opposed to keep requiring all of this, and two, at compile time, because we require all our assets here, they'll be included in the bundle. So that's helps out, and we won't have any issues with missing images in our bundle. I kind of like doing it this way. So I'm going to say heart icon, chat icon. I'm just going to do that for all three of these right here. Heart, chat, arrow. Oh, this is called bubble. And this I misspelled, so let's just fix that. All right. Okay, that should be good. So what I'm going to do now is jump back over here and We're going to make a new row. And again, I mentioned that maybe like here where I keep having these row heights of 50, that would be something we could maybe put in the config here. So if we want to change it or change it later on, we can. So I'm going to just say, I'm going to make another object called styles. And I'm going to say, or style constants. I'm going to say row height 50. And config dot style constants. So imagine if you had like an app with 100 screens and you needed to now go change this, or maybe this should be a common component. I don't know. You need some sort of strategy to not duplicate this kind of stuff. And we just need to import our config up here. Okay. Okay. And where was that other 50? So that's, oh, we're about to make one. So this new view, I'll call this dot icon bar. And we're going to give it the same height of config, this right here. That's what I'm saying. So now if we go and change the height to 100, we're all set. And there's all sorts of strategies. There's styled components, using that as a separate component. But for now, I think this is a good strategy without adding too much complexity and just stressing the idea of not repeating ourselves. And I think it looks like it has the same hairline or bottom border. So I'm gonna get that like hairline width. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna take this. Except what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna change this to border vertical, and that should do the top and bottom. And what don't they like? Border vertical width. Guess that only works on margin and padding, so we have to do. Okay, I'm just going to make this generic border color, which is supported. By the way, if you get an error on the styles, these errors here. So I'm going to make this border top width and border bottom width. And again, like I just copy and pasted that color. That could be something maybe we should move to our config and say default border color or something. And I'm going to have to zoom in again. Like you can barely see. Now we have this little bar there. And see what I mean? It disappears. So it's so fine that like on the phones the resolutions are very high, you could see it, but on the computer screens they disappear. Okay. And we're going to give this a flex direction of a row. Again, it's column by default. And I'm not even going to, I'll get rid of that alert by the way because that's getting annoying. We know that works. I'm not even going to, I'm just going to drop those images in there real quick and see how they look, and then we'll go from there. But I'm guessing they're going to align to the left by default. Now we have flex direction run. We should give them a little margin or center them vertically, I think, but let's give it a try. Image source equals config dot okay. I'm going to give these a common style that we're going to do at the bottom. Alright, so we have our 3 icons. Styles.icon does not exist, so I'm going to add that here. And if I save this, will they show up? Oh, we need a source. I did this earlier. Okay, so they're showing up, and bubble, and arrow. Okay, so that doesn't really look that good in terms of the shapes, the default sizes. So unfortunately, if you're working with like a random icon set like this, I'm gonna have to give them some separate like heights and stuff. So let me just pull up our image one more time. Yeah, let's. So the way to give, let me by first just in here throw in the height and width of 40 and see what happens. So yeah, so just by default, by the nature of the image, they're not going to work. So we kind of gotta go a little manual here. So this height and width here, I'm not going to set. I am going to make sure they all have the same padding. So padding horizontal. I'm going to give them 5. See how that looks. We're gonna have to change that after we fix their sizes. So this works good because if you look here, styles.icon, we want to give them this shared style, but we also want to give them some of their own styles. So the way that works is it's an array. So we're gonna make an array of styles. So this right here, remember, is a JSON object. We're going to give it another JSON object for its height and width. So the heart I'm going to give 40. That looks okay. This I'm going to give 30 just to see how it looks. Remember, I like to close the array, make sure I don't have any syntax parentheses errors, and then set it. Height 30, width 30. It's kind of like too small. Let's try 35. That looks decent. Let me get one more. That looks decent. And then for this arrow, let's do I feel like the height is fine. I feel like the width just needs to come in. But let's just try let's see if we can stretch it a little. See what oh, see, I'm missing my array ending. Okay. I think it's just not going to look great because of the aspect ratio of the arrow, but so there's this resize mode here, so we can say resize mode, stretch. Now we can stretch the image a little. So let's try this again. I mean, it's not going to be perfect. We probably need a better asset, but I want to get at least okay looking. Alright, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to center these, and then that'll be good enough for our purposes. So again, we need to go to this icons bar, and it's going to be align. See, I forget literally every time. I've done this probably 5,000 times by now. No. Okay, so now they're centered in the bar here, and let's just give them a little more padding. Yeah, you need to give them margin. Actually, I'm just gonna give them margin left because now these two are stacking, so they have it on both sides. Again, it's not perfect, but it gets the job done for now. And let's work on this heart icon. So I just want to try something real quick. Digital color meter. 2328984. Oh, this is actually a good one right here. I just trying to look for like a pinkish red color. This looks good. 2526157. Okay. Now, I believe there's a style called tint color, and I'm going to make that pink we just had. I want to try that. See, the problem is I should have gotten a heart that's filled in, but I mean, for now, you see how it turns red. I think that's good for now. So what we want to do though is we only want this to be red if we like our image. So this is the idea. Oh, that looks kind of good. This is the idea of the touchables I was talking about. So like if you click this image, nothing happens, right? So we can make anything into a button basically by using this property called touchable opacity right here. So you want to import that touchable opacity, and like here where we wrap our image, view, flex direction, row, what's in this? Hold on. We wrap our image in this view. Oh, sorry, wrong one. We need to basically just wrap this image. Right now it's not being wrapped anything in a touchable opacity. So just pretend it's like a div, like you would with or a view. You're just wrapping it. And this should, as of now, not cause an issue. So it just looks the same, right? But now we're going to give it this on press function. And what we want to do is do something on the press. And right now I'm just going to alert press so we can see if it's working or not. And you see how it flashes like that? Like it's got like a little opacity to it. So it's working. But what we want to do is like the image. So in the state up here, I'm going to add an attribute called liked false. And what we want to do is make a function here called like toggled, and all this is going to do is set state to whatever the opposite is. So right now liked is false. So we're going to set state, and we say liked is going to be the opposite, that bang character, this dot state dot liked. So that's this here. And now what we want to do is, instead of just alerting, we want to call this method every time we press the image. So I'm going to go back down to our onPress function. So onPress is a property a touchable opacity has, and it says, when on press, what do you want me to call? And you could pass in any function you want. And this is pretty much how we're going to get most of the functionality of our apps. So here, instead of alerting, I'm just going to say this dot like toggled. I'm going to call that method. And now if we do this, we're pressing it, nothing's happening. We're setting this here. We're just setting this property. We have no visibility into that. So one of the main things that you should remember about React is anything in the view, you don't need any logic to say like, if this is pressed, change to this color. Everything is, I guess they're like deterministic views is the vocabulary word, but everything is just needs to be some like function of, for example, I think this is a good way to describe it. So here, I'm going to say const heart icon color is going to be, or we're going to say this dot state dot liked. This is the ternary operator. So basically we're assigning this icon color to, we're going to evaluate this expression, and if it's true, we return one thing. If it's false, we return another. So expression, and then this gives the true and the false. So the true is going to be, if it's liked, we want to use that red color. Right here. So also, by the way, so now this tint color is going to be that variable. So we're going to call this tint color heart icon color. And we come back up here, and let's, and if false, if there's no, I want to see if I can pass in null if it just won't do anything to the tint. So let's try this quick. Alright, you see how it's changing like that? So again, basically what we're doing is tint color is going to be heart icon color, which is a variable. We in our render block we say that heart icon color, if it's liked, it's going to be red. If not, nothing. And then React automatically re-renders when it senses a change. That's kind of like one of the big ideas of React. So it's this view layer that automatically knows what to look for and respond to changes. So we don't say if someone presses this button, change the icon color to red. We say the icon color is always a function of this right here, and it's just always gonna update automatically. And then we describe the state in this onPress function. So now we have this kind of working here. And common question is about this flash. If you go to the touchable opacity, it has its property called active opacity, and this could be anything from 0 to 1. So if I make this 1, it's working, but there's no flash. So it's usually going to be like a point, just a little less flash. I don't know, you could play around, but so you want to give a little bit of feedback, but not too much. For some reason, the default with React Native is very, I think it must be like 0.3 or something, I think. And I've talked to some designers, and they're like, I don't know, they're like, why is it like that? I'm going to do 0.7 for now. That's good. But you see how here we can toggle our heart now? Okay, this is looking pretty good. Let's just throw in that bottom bar here real quick, just so we're pretty much finished in terms of the view here, and we can move on. That's only going to take a second, so let's just throw in one more view here. Style, let's do styles dot, I'm going to call it the comment bar. And you see how I'm kind of like laying out a kind of a groundwork or like framework for the screen, and you guys can come and do more or less or whatnot, but this should be good to get us kind of started. Okay, styles dot comment bar, and let's just down here, and again height is going to be the same, or actually like this at this point this is going to be the third time I'm copying and pasting this. Like this might be something we can kind of make its own component, like this one, two, border color, width. So that's something to think about. But again, just for like brevity purposes, I'm not going to do that right now. Anytime you're repeating something, think, should I be repeating this? What other strategies are there to kind of... I just want to make sure that bottom width, height. See, it's essentially almost the same exact logic there. So maybe that's something we want to repeat, or that should be extracted out. Let me pull up our picture quick. And it's just going to say the number of likes. And we're just going to put it in static for now. Let's get this image. Let's get this heart image in there. We're just going to make a smaller one. And I think what I want to do is find a solid one that we can use for that like, but for now I'm just going to leave what we have. But I want to use the same image as my point. I'm just going to drop down the size a little. Tint color is going to be, we're just going to leave it default. So basically what I want to do at a later point is find a filled in heart that we can use. Because right now this is just an outline, hence why it's like a smaller change. Image, and then I'm going to put some text. We're going to make up a fake number of likes for now until we have our server set up. And again, we got to do flex direction row. See, here's what I'm saying. We're doing like all the same. To be honest, let's just try this. Styles.icon bar. Maybe they can use the exact same set. That's not bad actually. I'm just going to leave that. We can get rid of all of this. So we're just reusing that icon bar logic. It actually works pretty good. And okay, so I'm gonna do this, and there's my other guy. So we're getting pretty much like the shape there. I'd say fairly close. We can click, we can like stuff locally. Next we're gonna, not next, that's gonna be more complicated how to integrate that with the server and whatnot. And what we're missing is this top and bottom bar. That's gonna be the next video that deals with the navigation library. Let me see how we're doing on time here. Okay, we're okay. So I have enough time here, so let's go to that next screen. And then the problem is going to be we have no way to navigate between the two screens. So, which is, I'm trying to think. Sorry, I have two ideas of what I want to do. and I don't want to make this video too long, so they're competing in my mind right now. Let's make it so. Okay, I'm gonna make it instead. So right now we have. Let me get rid of this window, by the way. This is not working. So what I'm going to do is make it so that we can scroll through all of these images. In the next video, we're going to do the navigation to the profile screen and that other profile screen. And by that point, we can kind of do that pretty quickly. But I want to get to some more like basic React components, and so I think it makes more sense now to kind of make sure we need to scroll through this feed. Like right now, it's only one image of me and this that I posted of this dog, and we can't scroll through it. So that's what I want to do next. So this component here that I'm calling instaclone.js, this is really like I don't know what, like a card or like a post. This is really a post. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my components directory and go to my presentational directory, and I'm going to create a index.js, and then we're also going to create a post.js, and we're going to import post from post, export, post. I remember earlier I had trouble when I was requiring my file at the top, and I accidentally did this. Whoops. So what we're doing here is we're making these like submodules, so when we import them, we can do it like this. So you see how you're importing these like 6 submodules from React Native, and that just is better when we have, you're importing 30 different things. It makes our life much easier. So that's why we do this. And right now we only have one file, so it doesn't make sense. But all right, let's go to post. Let's make a create. Well, we don't need to make anything because we just made a post. So everything you did in instaclone, you're gonna copy, select all, and go to your post.js, paste it in there. Make sure at the bottom, export default post. Class is going to become post, and just make sure there's no other references to the old thing. So the one file that's going to stay is this header, which again is going to be replaced eventually. But so view style and this height 100, this height and width of 100 we don't want either. So let's just let's get rid of this. So you should have this user bar up here. Let's just put in a blank view for now. See how that looks. And okay, that should be good. And so if we go to instaclone, we can get rid of everything here except the header now. This function we don't need. We don't need any of this state stuff. Basically what we're doing is we're turning the post to a reusable component. So cause we want to render like 500 of them, and then be able to scroll through them is my goal here. So the only thing we need is this outer view, the styles for that nav bar, which again will eventually be replaced, and the rest we can get rid of. View, okay, let's try that. So our Instagram is there. We can get rid of all these styles except for temp nav. And then let me just fix this so you guys can see. So now the problem is, let's just make sure our post fits in here nicely. So just to go a step ahead, there needs to be some kind of container that's rendering these 500 posts into our view. So the way we're going to do that is through a container, a FlatList container, I'm going to call it. So, and that's going to kind of handle a little bit of the logic. So in this right here, we're just going to say post feed, or it's just called a feed, right? Yeah. I guess you could have other kind of feeds of messages. I don't know. I'm going to call this post feed. That doesn't exist, so we're going to import it and then create it. Post feed from dot slash. Sorry, guys. See where we are. Slash components containers. And then we're going to go to our container, create that index.js again. We need to import post feed from dot slash post feed, export post feed. All right. And we need to make a post feed. I'm going a little quick here now, guys, because I mean, you can just stop if you need to catch up. It's just a standard creating components. Standard render return. And I just want to make sure that everything we had before still kind of like works. You know, maybe through all the extra views and divs, some sort of flex property didn't go through to the children. So I just right here want to render a post. And we have to import the post. Dot slash presentation. And obviously it doesn't work because we just did a lot at once. So let's class export default post feed, import post from presentation, container, import post. Give me a second here, guys. Go ahead and save one of these files, I think. And also, we haven't really done it yet. Sometimes you check your bundler, they'll find an issue for you. Cannot find config. Okay, so that's easy. So in our post here, we just had to fix our file path. And like I was saying, something is all messed up now, right? So view style. So in our moving this over, like some of our parent children flex properties kind of got messed up. So let's just take a look real quick. And let's go to our original container, flex one. So this is taking up the whole screen, which is what we want. Okay. I'm just kind of playing around for a second and get this working, and then I'll explain. So this doesn't need any extra. It's just in our actual post. I think we could give it a width of 100%. Okay, so we just need to give this a width of 100% to keep having it fill that full page. Let me see if I can get rid of this other stuff, if that was the only issue or not. We just need to give it a flex of 1, which basically says I am a flex box. Display my children flex properties and pass that down and give it a width of 100, and we're good to go. Still working. All right. Now what we want to do is I'm going to pull up the docs to show you guys. React Native FlatList. This is so basically we don't just want to render like 500 images. We need to use some native component that will like give us some performance improvements and like extra utility methods, because you don't want to just render, or let's say you have 1,000 posts, you don't want to just render them on the fly. Like there's different performance issues there. So the FlatList, basically by fitting into their framework and component, can basically render things as you scroll, and like basically pretty much how every feed operates. So it's very simple. If you look right here, it just says take some data and a render item function. So what we're going to do is go to our container, and we're going to import FlatList from React Native. And instead of here post, we're going to say FlatList. Now data is going to be an issue for now because we need to make something up, but I'll think of that. And why don't I do this? Okay, so that's that. So it's just an array of 20s or data. And again, when we get to real data, you're going to be using, say, an array of 20 objects of different posts, and that's kind of how this is all dynamic. But we're just trying to get the basics set up now. So that's data, and then we need to give it a render function. And it's weird because, like here, I see a lot render item. Oh, well, they're doing inline, but like these, like this is just syntax, like this underscore. But I'll see that a lot for like render items, or here key extractor. But for some reason, a lot of the linting libraries have a rule against that. So I'm not really sure what the status is there. But anyway, I see this a lot. So I'm going to have a function called render post, and what this is going to do is just going to return our post. And so we just need to say this dot render post, or I was using ES6 before. I don't want to overcomplicate things. And okay, okay. Each item needs a key. Okay. Let me just check that key. Basically, React requires this key extractor. This key extractor. All right, let's. So basically, if you have a list of items, the way React keeps track of them, they each need a unique ID. So I'm going to make a function here called return key. It's going to take the item. And because our items right now are just numbers, I could just return the item. So I'm going to do this, pass the item and return the item. And return item, key extractor. Oh, it needs to be a string. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so we fixed our key issue, but we're not getting any of our posts. So let's check the docs on that part. Render item takes a function, this dot render item. We're just going to return an item. Okay, so let's try that. Render posts. So here they're taking in an item, which we don't even need, and we should be able to just return post, but we are having an issue. I'm just going to render some like text, just return some text real quick, just to see if we can get a list of text, and then we can troubleshoot. And we just need to import that text. Okay, so here's our issue. For some reason, I put the list in this top component, so there we go. Very easy to fix. So well, let's just leave this text here for now and go back to our instaclone.js. And here where we have post feed, just get it out of that container. And look, now we have this test text. And now if we go back to our post feed, we want to change this to render these posts. And look, now we have a feed of these posts. This looks kind of like a real Instagram feed now. Just to give you an idea of, let me see how we're doing on time. Okay, I gotta finish up just because for some reason these videos are huge and taking up all my hard drive space, so I won't save like too much longer. But so we have this image here. I just want to give you the idea of like the dynamic data. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go back to our dashboard. I forgot I was on a different account. Let me see if I can remember my. All right, let me just go to my. I'm going to use my other CDN for now. Unless I have it. Yeah, I accidentally closed it out. All right, so okay, so we go back to our storage and let's upload another picture. Save image, puppy 2. Now basically what I want to do is basically just show you how to pass in data into these views so that they're coming dynamically, and then once we have our server hooked up, then we're going to be rendering real posts. But for now it'll kind of give you the idea of how all this fits together. So upload your file to your CDN. Get the URL. And just remember, earlier we were doing some pre-processing to get the cropping and size and stuff. So what we want to do is go to our posts, and I'm just going to say const image selection equals, and we're going to get some, let's just, how about we get some ID passed to us. I'm going to say ID mod 2. So that's basically saying if divided by 2, is there a remainder or not? Use this picture. Sorry guys, hard with the screen here. Basically we're just trying to pick some way to randomize the pictures of those two that we have. Else we want to use this one. And then we're going to change this, the beginning of this, to the image selection. So we're keeping all that same cropping things going on. And this should randomize that. And this or this. Can't find variable ID. Okay, so this can say this dot props dot ID. And so all we want to do back in our feed post, I'm going to say ID equals item. I'll just say item for now. Item equals item. And then this will just say this dot props dot item, because our items are just numbers for now while we're kind of this dot props dot item mod 2. Okay, so let's just see what's getting passed through quick. And if you do Command D, you can open up your web inspector. Wait, sorry. Debug JS remotely. That's what we want. and you can open up your console. Okay, so it's not getting passed through, it's getting undefined. So let's go back to our feed. Oh, I didn't save it, that's why. See, now we have this feed of all these different dogs. And again, I just want to reiterate. So here, where I say item equals item, I'm passing this through. So we have a single function, and the post, like the post is just handling our view logic. So we pass in these item, which for now, for temporary, it's just this array of numbers 1 through 20. We pass that through to our post, and it decides, oh, let's render which image based on if it's odd or even. Now, just to give you, like, for example, let's pretend these are all going to be JSON objects, which have their own URLs, a number of likes, that kind of stuff. And then when we pass that through, this is all going to be dynamic. So that's going to be the next stage, is how to, instead of just boring static data, let's pass in some real objects. But it's literally the exact same logic and layout and everything. And it's just all about making it dynamic. So this is going to be literally just, instead of this data of these numbers, you're just going to have some access to an array of objects. And then the hard part is basically how do we get those objects. And the displaying part and the rendering part is all done. We just did that all, so that's easy. Not easy, I mean, to display the new data will be easy. So yeah, I mean, I think it's looking pretty good. Again, next up, we're going to work on that profile page in the next video with that grid of 9 and the React navigation to navigate between the screens. And so if you click me, it should go to my profile. And then we'll start making this kind of dynamic. That'll be kind of the next focus of the series. But I'm pretty excited. I mean, I think we got, I think it's coming along nicely. And I'm kind of excited to kind of finish it off. So it's going to be about 4 parts. So 10 hours total. But I think after this, you'll have a very good understanding of like the basics of React Native and how the components fit together, fetching data from the network. Yeah, so I'm going to end this off here before my hard drive runs out of space. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.